Having said goodbye to her dying husband, she took the nurse's advice and installed a hidden camera in his room. In the morning, after watching the footage, she was horrified. Carmelita was the daughter of businessman Orlando Serrato. He owned a factory, several restaurants, and a chain of beauty salons, which he had opened for his latest mistress. Carmelita saw that Felisa Tegal had a tight grip on her father and had no intention of letting go. After Carmelita's mother died, Orlando never remarried, but he did have women in his life. However, in his daughter's opinion, Felisa had stayed around for quite a while, and this began to worry her. Not because she didn't like her, but because she saw predators circling her father, and she couldn't bear the thought of one of them becoming her stepmother. "Dad, what are your plans for today? Do you remember we need to go to the cemetery to visit Mom? You haven't forgotten, have you?" "No, sweetie. How could I forget? You know your mother was the most beloved woman in the world to me, and I still remember everything related to her. You've grown up and look so much like her. You inherited her beauty, and sometimes when I look at you, I recall the years when I was a happy man. I did everything for her, earned as much money as I could. But what good did it do? That money didn't save my beloved woman. Dad, come on. The doctor said nothing could be done. Stop blaming yourself. Besides, you remember Mom always told us to keep living and regret nothing. You're so much like her, not only beautiful but also very smart. All right, sweetie, I'll go to my meeting, then I'll pick you up, and we'll go together. We haven't had a heart-to-heart in a long time. I'm always so busy. How are things at the university? What are your plans after graduation? Will you come work for me? No, Dad, you know I dream of starting my own business. For now, I want to work somewhere else first. I hope you don't mind. Of course, I do. The daughter of millionaire Orlando Serrato working for some stranger? No, I can't allow that. Dad, everyone at the university already thinks I got in because of you. The professors have realized I do have brains instead of sawdust, but the students still think otherwise. Who cares what they think? Pay no attention. You can't imagine what people say about me all the time. But I don't pay any attention to it. Think about it. If you work for me for a bit, you'll reach your goal of starting your own business faster. I could use some PR, and I think you'd be great at it. Come on, sweetie, agree. Okay, Dad, I'll think about it. By the way, how are things with Felisa? Aren't you tired of her yet? You know, sweetie. I don't get why you're asking. Did she offend you? I thought you two got along. Everything's fine, Dad. I was just asking. You just said we haven't had a heart-to-heart in a long time. Well, all right then. I've been wanting to tell you that Felisa is not like the other women. She's special. I don't mean she's like your mother, but at least she isn't as greedy as all the other contenders. That's what I like about her. Dad, well, you probably know better, but I wouldn't say that about her. I think she's just cunning and has achieved quite a lot with her cunning, unlike the others. But that's your business. I won't interfere in your relationships. You know, when I was little, I liked that you didn't bring another woman home out of consideration for my feelings. And when I was in school, I liked it too. But then, when I grew up, I realized it was selfishness. And when you introduced me to Isabella Landeros, I was so happy for you and thought it would work out for you too. I thought so too, sweetheart. But it turned out that Isabella couldn't handle such a life. She was always scared and nervous, and then she couldn't take it anymore and left me. All right, Dad, let's not talk about sad things. I need to drop by my friend's place. She's been sick all week, and I need to bring her my notes. Call me when you're free. Carmelita was sitting in her friend's kitchen, drinking coffee. So, copy everything down and bring it on Monday. I see you finally recovered. You can't imagine how bad it was for me without you. Oh, come on, there's always someone around you. Sometimes I feel like I'm just a free add-on for you that you don't even use. Stop it. Don't talk nonsense. You know that's not true. I know. So why do you look so sad? Did something happen? Not exactly. Dad and I are going to the cemetery to visit Mom today. You know how I always feel about that. And I don't like that Felisa is constantly around him. I used to be calm about it because I thought it was temporary. Although I'm not a prude, I still want a serious woman to be with my father. What's wrong with Felisa? She's not much older than me. She could be my father's daughter. And you know, I just don't believe in her sincere feelings. Listen, you're wrong there. Honestly, I would go for your father myself. He's such a handsome, distinguished man. Why are you looking at me like that? Do you think that just because he's older, younger women can't be interested in him? You're mistaken. For example, I find it uninteresting to talk to guys our age. They're all so shallow. They only have one thing on their minds: how to get us into bed as quickly as possible. But men like your father, they court you beautifully, they don't rush, and of course, a woman falls in love. I think Felisa fell in love that way too. So, I understand her. Who doesn't rush? Men like my father? I beg you, they don't have time for all that courting. They get straight to the point. Understand? Really? I thought it was all very romantic. Oh, Amadea, you're such a dreamer. The girls laughed for a long time. Carmelita realized how much she enjoyed sitting in the small kitchen with her best friend, not having to think about anything. Felisa was sitting in the office sorting through papers. Lately, everything had been irritating her, and even this activity didn't calm her down. Lorena, bring me some coffee in the office. I think my blood pressure dropped. I'll bring it right away, Felisa. A couple of minutes later, Felisa's assistant, Lorena, entered the office. The girl was pretty, efficient, and always tried to please Felisa. Here's your coffee, Felisa. How are you feeling? Maybe you should go home? No, I won't go. Today my Orlando is going to the cemetery with his daughter to visit Carmelita's mother. Sometimes it feels like he still loves her, just like he loves his daughter. He treats her like she's made of glass. And it drives me crazy. I thought you got along with her. Yes, I go out of my way to please her. But that little flirt is always cold towards me. We never became friends. She has only one friend, Amadea, I think. She only hangs out with her, and not with me. No matter what I do, giving her gifts, suggesting we go shopping together, she always has the same response: sorry, Felisa, but I need to study. But I need her approval. Plus, I want Orlando to marry me, otherwise, all this is in vain. He seems to be trying hard for you. You have a chain of beauty salons, you're a wealthy woman. But if he leaves me, I'll be left with nothing. Sure, he doesn't leave his former women empty-handed, he gives them something. But I'm not interested in something. I want all his money. It's frustrating that he's in no hurry to propose, and I can't wait any longer. I've already stayed too long. I feel he's going to dump me soon. I don't know what to do. Maybe you could tell Carmelita that you love her father very much and you won't be able to bear a breakup? Lorena, what are you talking about? Carmelita doesn't care about me. She knows perfectly well, if it's not me, it will be another woman. She's used to it. We need to act more cunningly. Carmelita was still at her friend's when her father called. Well, my dear, I'm free now. Where are you? I'm at Amadea's. Come here, I'll wait for you. All right, sweetie, I'll be there soon. Carmelita hung up the phone and looked at her friend. Dad will be here soon, so I'll wait for him at your place. Listen, why don't you come over to my place tonight? You can stay over, we'll chat a bit, and Carmen will cook us something delicious. Oh, how I love Carmen. She has golden hands. You're so lucky to have both a cook and a housekeeper. Unlike us, we have to do everything ourselves. Carmelita stayed silent. She often heard such comments from Amadea but had grown used to them and paid no attention. So, are you coming? Yes, I'll come. Then let's do this. When my father and I are on our way back, we'll pick you up so you don't have to spend money on a taxi. A taxi? I get to your place by bus. After all, you live downtown, not like us on the outskirts. But your apartment is nice, so don't complain. It's settled then, wait for us, and we'll come to get you. Carmelita stood by her mother's grave. They didn't visit often anymore, each consumed with their own problems and responsibilities, but they came whenever they could to visit Luz Serrato. Well, Luz, look at our daughter. She's grown up to be your spitting image. Just like you said, she looks like you but has my personality. And that's how it turned out. His daughter hugged him, understanding how hard this was for him. Carmelita remembered her mother faintly. She had just started first grade when her mother fell seriously ill. All right, Dad, don't get upset, or your blood pressure will go up, and you won't sleep again tonight. Yes, I need an assistant, sweetheart. It's hard to keep up with everything alone, which is why I'm asking for your help. Understand, it'll be easier for both of us, and I won't be under such strain. Please accept my offer. You're the only one I can trust in this life. Okay, Dad, I agree. Just don't get upset. And you know what, Dad? I have one condition, that you also take my friend Amadea. You know we study at the same institute. Plus, her family is struggling financially. Her father is very sick. There was an accident at the factory where he works, and he hasn't recovered since. Yes, I heard. They offered to sell me that factory because the old owners neglected it, leading to the accident. But I can't do anything until the legal issues are resolved. As for your friend, I agreed because I know you wouldn't be friends with a bad person. Dad, that's great. Amadea is staying over at my place tonight, so I'll tell her the news. Can we pick her up on our way back? Is that all right? Of course. Although I wanted to invite Felisa and you to a restaurant this evening. I have a reason. Don't tell me you're planning to marry Felisa. Daughter, are you against it? Dad, it's your decision. Just know that I don't like her. You should marry someone better, but it's up to you. If you're happy with her, then I won't oppose it. Thank you, sweetheart, I needed your support. So, you won't join us at the restaurant tonight? Dad, I already invited my friend over, and besides, I think you can celebrate your engagement another time. You'll enjoy your evening just fine without me. Are you coming home tonight or staying at Felisa's? Though, why am I even asking? You'll stay at your own apartment, which you gave her. You still have that sharp tongue. Most likely, I'll stay at her place. Well, so I don't disturb you. Let Carmen spoil you with all sorts of delicacies. I know the masterpieces she can create. Felisa's mood significantly improved when Orlando called to tell her he would pick her up that evening and take her to a restaurant. Her heart beat joyfully, and she felt he had something very important to say. Lorena, is the stylist available? I urgently need a hairstyle and a manicure. I'll find out right away. Felisa, do you have a meeting? All questions later. First, find out. Lorena hurried to the office and reported that the stylist was free and waiting for Felisa. Can you believe it? Orlando invited me to a restaurant. He said he has something important to discuss. I think he's finally ready to propose. What if it's the opposite? The opposite? Well, what if he says, for example, that you're breaking up? Felisa paused. She hadn't considered that possibility. You know, Lorena, you really know how to spoil someone's mood. Everything is fine between us. I don't think he would just break up with me like that. You're right, Felisa. I spoke without thinking. Exactly. And before you say anything to me, think 10 times first. Got it? In the evening, Felisa put on her best dress, looked at herself in the mirror, and was satisfied. She was a very beautiful woman with a great figure, so when Orlando saw her, he would fall in love with her all over again. However, one thought slightly dampened her mood. She didn't know if Carmelita would be present that evening. This worried her a bit. If the daughter was there, he would definitely propose, but if not, then it was likely something else. When she got into Orlando's car, her heart started to beat a little faster. Orlando was alone, without his daughter. Immediately, the anxious thought that they were probably going to break up started to pound in her head. She carefully planned the conversation, trying to figure out what to say to make sure he wouldn't leave her. "Is it just me, or are you worried about something? It was just a tough day, plus my blood pressure dropped this morning, and I wasn't feeling well. You need to keep an eye on your blood pressure. I understand, I have problems with it myself. But you're so young. Why are you having such issues? It's probably just from overwork. I don't really know. You should see my doctor. Let me tell you, he's amazing. He'll quickly figure out what's wrong and what needs to be treated." At these words, Felisa breathed a sigh of relief. Orlando wasn't planning to break up with her yet, so everything was fine. She relaxed a bit and smiled. Now the girls were sitting in Carmelita's kitchen at home. Amadeo was devouring a pastry that Carmen had just served with coffee. "Eat up, my dears. I also have a roll. It turns out very tasty too. It's good that Carmelita warned me that Amadeo would be here today because I thought you, Carmelita, would be going to the restaurant with your father. I didn't feel like it. Besides, Amadeo was supposed to come over. Well, you could have just let me know, and I would have come another time. No, everything turned out perfectly. My father is going to propose to Felisa today, and I don't want to be there for that." Amadeo stopped chewing, signaling to Carmelita with her eyes that they weren't alone and that Carmen shouldn't be hearing such things. "Stop it. Carmen doesn't like her either. Luckily, my father transferred the house to me, and most likely, when Felisa finds out, she won't want to live here because I won't tolerate her as a neighbor. It's one thing to see her once a month, and another to see her every day. So, you really don't like her? Although you said she was okay." "I said that when I thought my father wouldn't marry her. Now I think she did everything to get him to propose. Well, it's not a big deal. I'll be working for him after I finish college, and then I'll keep an eye on her. By the way, Amadeo, you'll be working with me. I already talked to my father about it." Amadeo almost choked when she heard this. "Are you serious? I'll be working at your father's company?" "Yes, I told you so." "Thank you, my friend. You have no idea what you've done for me. My father said he would get me a job at the factory where he works, but I don't want to be there. Plus, they haven't paid the workers for 3 months because management is still dealing with the aftermath of that accident. Well, don't worry about work now. You'll get settled, and then we can bring your father over to work with us. I think he'll agree." "Of course, he'll agree. But he hasn't been granted disability. He was badly injured back then. I don't know if your father will want to hire him given his condition. Don't worry about it, we'll figure it out later." Felisa admired the impressive diamond ring on her finger. Her whole being was rejoicing. She had achieved her goal. It was strange that his daughter wasn't present. "Does she not know yet? Does Carmelita know that you proposed to me?" "Yes, she just couldn't make it. She had another engagement today. But she said we'd have plenty of time to celebrate together. And she's right. Besides, after the wedding, we'll be living together in your apartment." "I don't think so, Felisa. That apartment belongs to Carmelita. So, we'll be living in your apartment. It's spacious enough for the two of us." "Fine, darling, whatever you say." In reality, Felisa was seething with anger inside. She had dreamt of finally living in the apartment where Carmelita and her father currently lived. Plus, it had the staff. But now everything was ruined. She wouldn't get the apartment because Carmelita was the mistress of the house. How had she not considered this? Most likely, he had already made a will. It's only right that everything should go to Carmelita if the apartment is already hers. Carmelita was born in that apartment. She went to kindergarten and then to school from there. She loves that apartment. And I promised Luz I would transfer the property to our daughter so that she wouldn't lack anything. You did the right thing. Besides, it doesn't matter where we'll be happy, does it? My apartment is very cozy. I think we'll be very comfortable there. I think so too. But now we need to go. I have to get up early tomorrow, so let's head home. As for the wedding, I think you can handle the arrangements since I'll be busy for the next couple of weeks. Felisa didn't sleep that night. Everything seemed to be going according to plan, but the thought of Carmelita still troubled her. Carmelita was her number one enemy. She knew that Carmelita would never consider her part of the family. Yes, she tolerated her as her father's friend, but she would never accept her as his wife. Something needed to be done about this immediately. Felisa had dreamed of moving into that luxurious apartment in the city center after the wedding. But now that plan had also fallen apart. They could move in, but only temporarily, because at any moment, if Carmelita didn't like something, she could just kick her out. Felisa hadn't anticipated that Orlando would start transferring all his assets to his daughter. She needed to find out about the will before the wedding, because it would likely be too late to change anything afterward. The next day, her father called Carmelita and told her that he had proposed to Felisa and she had agreed to become his wife. Dad, honestly, I wasn't surprised. Congratulations to both of you. Dad, let's talk later because you know I have to rush to the institute. I hope you haven't forgotten that I'm graduating this year. I've been counting the days. I need a trustworthy assistant, so I'm eagerly waiting for you to join me. Soon, Dad, but for now, goodbye. Kisses. Carmelita left her room and went down to the kitchen, already smelling the fresh brewed coffee. Carmen was busy at the stove, and when she saw Carmelita, she immediately started setting the table. Carmen, there's no need because I'm already running late. I'll just have some coffee. And Amadea will have coffee too. You're wrong. Amadea won't have just coffee. She'll also want yesterday's roulade, if there's any left. Carmelita couldn't help but smile. Her friend was a terrible sweet tooth, always munching on something, and her pockets were always full of candy wrappers. Fine, but keep in mind, if we're late, I'll be very angry with you. How can we be late when the institute is just a few steps from your house? Carmelita nodded. True, why was she getting on her friend's case? The issue wasn't being late, it was the call from her father and the news he had shared. Although she already knew yesterday that her father was planning a surprise for his woman, she still hoped. But what was she hoping for, really? I know that look. Did someone manage to ruin your mood this morning? Carmen looked at Carmelita anxiously and asked. Who upset you, dear? I heard you talking to someone on the phone. It was Dad calling, saying you proposed to Felisa yesterday, and she agreed. So that vixen is going to live here? Then I'll leave. I'll drop everything and leave. Carmen, why are you grumbling? She won't be living here. Besides, you know very well that this house is mine. And Dad wouldn't let her live here. I hope you won't leave me. I won't leave you, my dear. You're like a daughter to me. But I can't stand that insolent woman. You should see the way she orders me around, like she's a queen and I'm her servant. If she does move in here, she won't be able to treat you like that. I promise. All right, Amadea, that's enough eating. Let's go, we're going to be late for the institute. On the way, Amadea finished the pastry Carmen had given them for the road, while Carmelita remained silent, lost in thought. How long are you going to stay quiet? What are you thinking about? I'm bored. I don't even understand why it angers me that Dad is marrying this Felisa. It feels like jealousy, but it's not. I remember when Dad was seeing Isabella. She was so nice. If he had married her, I wouldn't feel this anger. So, it is about Felisa after all? I just don't like her, that's all. From what I gathered from Carmen, you're not the only one who doesn't like her. So, she's quite the shark. But your dad isn't a fool either, right? Look, friend, I prefer you not call my dad that. He's certainly not a foolish man, but love makes people, men and women alike, lose their minds completely. That's true. But there's nothing you can do now, so you'll have to put up with it. No, I won't put up with it. The apartment is mine. If she wants to live here, she'll do it by my rules. If not, she can leave. You're right, you're the mistress of the house, so it's your decision. Now let's drop this subject and focus on our studies. Just a little bit more, and we'll start working at my dad's company. By the way, how did you agree? You didn't want to work for him. How did he convince you? He didn't really. He just said he needed my help. You see, he can't manage everything anymore, and you can't always trust subordinates. So he asked me to help him. How could I refuse? You're right, it's hard to refuse your dad. Besides, he's done so much for you. He's a great man. I know, and I love him very much. Felisa sat in her office, looking through bridal magazines. She wanted to dazzle at the wedding, so she had to choose the most expensive dress. She also needed to find a restaurant, discuss the menu, and send out invitations. Then find a host to ensure the wedding was fun. It might be a good idea to invite a celebrity. Orlando said she could do whatever she wanted, and he wouldn't refuse her anything. So, she planned to organize a magnificent wedding that the city would remember for a long time. After all, it was Orlando Serrato getting married. But doing all this alone would be very difficult. She needed an assistant. And the best helper she could think of was Carmelita. Spending all these days together would likely bring them closer. Then, after the wedding, Carmelita might even be happy about living together. Lorena, find me Carmelita's number. I'm busy right now. Will do, Felisa. Felisa had chosen a dress she was thrilled with. It was something she had never dreamed of. Born into a poor family with a drunken father and a meek, downtrodden mother who couldn't even stand up to him, Felisa had always vowed to leave that dreadful village and never return. She planned to marry a rich man, so even if he drank, at least there would be money to make his drunken face easier to tolerate. Here's the number, Felisa. Oh my, what a beautiful dress. It must cost a fortune. Can't you see for yourself? It's from the latest collection. And the dress is indeed stunning. I'll show it to Carmelita. I think she'll be in awe. I want to ask her to help me with the wedding preparations. I don't think she'll refuse. Of course, Felisa, I think she'll be happy to help you. Well, about being happy, I have my doubts. She tolerated me while her father hadn't proposed yet, but now, I think things will change. She doesn't like me, that's obvious. But now, things will be different. I'll put that upstart in her place. She will listen to me. And if not, she better be ready for war. I'm terrible when I'm angry. After coming back from her classes, Carmelita went to the kitchen to have a bite to eat. She had a terrible headache today and decided to take a nap. Likely because she and Amadia had stayed up late the night before, she didn't get enough sleep. You look very pale, my dear. Are you feeling sick? I just have a bad headache. I think it's because I didn't get enough sleep. I don't think so. This spring has been cold, and you've been going out without a hat. You've probably caught a cold. Now, have some hot soup, then juice, and off to bed. Turn off your phone so no one bothers you. If your father calls, I'll tell him you're home and just decided to get some rest. Understood? Yes, I'll do as you say. Carmelita woke up late in the evening. She felt weak, but much better. The first thing she did was turn on her phone. There were several missed calls from her father and a few from Felisa. Carmelita frowned, wondering what that woman wanted from her. Carmen, did Dad call you? Yes, my dear. I told him what we agreed on. He asked that you call him when you wake up. He's worried. Got it. I'll call him back. Did Felisa call? Me? Why would she? She knows very well that I can't stand her. Did she call you? Yes, a few missed calls. I don't understand what she wants from me. Oh well, it's not important. I'll wash up and call Dad. Come on, sweetie, let me heat up your dinner for you. She stepped out of the bathroom and dialed her father's number. After a few rings, he answered. Hi, sweetheart, how are you feeling? Better now, Dad. I still feel a bit weak, but I'll be fine by tomorrow. Carmen said she'd feed me and then give me some kind of herbal brew before bed, so everything should be okay. Well, that's great to hear. When she told me you went to bed, I immediately thought you were sick. It's been like that since childhood. When you're not feeling well, you just want to sleep. I'm glad it's nothing serious. How are things otherwise? How's school? Everything's fine, Dad. I'm preparing for my thesis defense, so don't worry. Your daughter will soon be joining your ranks and helping you out. I'm glad to hear that, sweetheart. Well, go have your dinner, and we'll talk again before you go to bed. Sure, Dad. Bye for now. After hanging up, Carmelita remembered she wanted to ask her father why Felisa had called her. But since he didn't mention anything, it must not be very important. Felisa glared at Orlando, who was talking on the phone with his daughter. She couldn't figure out what illness they were discussing and decided not to interrupt the conversation. However, she was seething with anger. She had called Carmelita earlier, but the girl hadn't answered. Felisa saw that she was being deliberately ignored, which only made her angrier. Once her future husband finished his call, she approached him and sat on his lap. Did something happen? Is someone sick? Carmelita. I called her earlier today, but she didn't pick up. I called Carmen, and she told me that when Carmelita came home from school, she complained of a headache. Then she ate a bit and went to bed. I knew right away she must be sick. But Carmen will take good care of her. She practically raised Carmelita. Carmen came into our house after my wife died. She and Luz were friends, and Carmen absolutely adored Carmelita. Thank goodness. I was worried that your daughter was angry with me because I also tried to call her today, and she ignored me. At least, it seemed that way. Now it makes sense, she's sick. Why did you need to call Carmelita? Did something happen? Oh, darling, I just wanted to ask her to help me choose a wedding dress and generally assist with the wedding preparations. What do you think? Is it a good idea? It's a great idea. But I wouldn't recommend relying on Carmelita for help. Why not? Doesn't she want to help? It's not that she doesn't want to, she's just busy with her studies. She's preparing for her exams, so I'd advise you not to bother her. Besides, she's not really into all the fuss of wedding planning. So, when she gets married, she won't need a wedding dress. Exactly. And I'll bet you anything that she won't even want guests. She'll probably just go with her boyfriend to the registry office, get married, and that's it. Your daughter is strange. I always thought that every girl loves elaborate weddings, guests, music, and celebration. Well, as you can see, not everyone does. So, I'd advise you not to bother Carmelita with such trivial matters, it will only annoy her. I don't believe you, Orlando. It seems to me that she just doesn't want to talk to me. We haven't seen each other for almost a month, and she wasn't with us when you proposed either. Maybe we could have dinner together this weekend? What do you think of my idea? That sounds good, I'll tell my daughter. Besides, there are things I need to discuss with her. I thought I'd wait until she finished college, but I see that I'll need her help sooner. Has something happened? No, everything is fine. It's just that the people working for me don't understand anything about advertising. Carmelita, on the other hand, is very knowledgeable in that area, so I'll need her assistance. Well, why do you keep such people then? You're paying them salaries, and they're not doing their job. Fire them, there's no reason to keep them. In my salons, I deal with such people quickly. If you don't want to work, you're free to go. I don't hold anyone back, and there's always another specialist to take their place. You're right, Felisa, but my situation is a bit different. Anyway, I won't burden you with my problems. Let's go to dinner. I didn't even get a chance to have lunch today because of work. I'm really hungry. Of course, let's go, dear. Just give me 10 minutes to change. A week flew by quickly. Carmelita was already ready and waiting for the driver to pick her up and take her to the restaurant where she would meet her father and his fiancée. She didn't want to see Felisa, but she had no choice. She would have to smile politely to avoid upsetting her father. Since Felisa had called Carmelita that one time, there had been no more calls, and she had completely forgotten about her. Felisa was of no interest to her. Hi, Dad. Hello, Felisa. You look lovely. Carmelita said the polite phrase as she sat down at the table. Her father smiled and winked at his daughter. Felisa also forced a smile, but Carmelita noticed that her eyes were weary. Hi, Carmelita. How are you? How are you feeling? I'm fine, there was nothing to worry about. Just a mild cold, but it's long gone. Carmen took good care of me. Oh, Carmen is such a guardian angel. It's wonderful to have people like that in the family, isn't it, Orlando? Orlando ignored Felisa's comment and turned directly to his daughter. Carmelita, I have something for you. I'll send you the documents for my new factory this evening. We need advertising, and not just any advertising, something serious. I think you understand what I mean. My current advertisers are making brochures, but who needs those? I believe it's just money wasted. Who's going to read them? Real advertising is a whole different level. Do you agree? I agree, Dad. I've told you that before, so I'll take on the job. Thank you, sweetheart. I'm glad you're helping me. I'll need some help, but I'll ask Amadia. You'll see how she works. I think we won't let you down. That's great. Later, let me know how much I should pay Amadia. I'm sure the money will come in handy for her. And I have a gift for you, I hope you'll like it. Carmelita caught Felisa's gaze, and Felisa even flinched at the mention of a gift. Meanwhile, Orlando pulled out a set of keys from his pocket and handed them to his daughter. I bought you a car. I think you'll need it now. You might have to visit the factory frequently for work, and my driver isn't always available. So I think you'll manage on your own. Thank you, Dad, that's a wonderful gift. Carmelita, it's a fabulous gift. I'd be jumping with joy if I were you, Felisa interjected, glaring at the keys that were now in front of Carmelita. I'm just not as emotional as you are, that's all. By the way, how are the wedding preparations going? Are you managing? Not very well. I wanted to ask you for help, but your father explained that it's better not to bother you. To be honest, it's a bit hurtful. You're ready to help your father, but not me. You misunderstood, Felisa. It's just that this is my future job. Helping my father is experience for me and will help with my thesis defense. And wedding preparations are just distracting me right now, so please understand. Yes, she understands perfectly, sweetheart. Right, Felisa? You're managing quite well on your own. I think everything is going great. Well, you're right. I'm doing everything myself. But you know, Carmelita, I'd really like you to see my wedding dress and tell me if it's beautiful or not. Your opinion is very important to me. No problem. Do you have a photo? Felisa bit her lip. She really wanted Carmelita to visit her salon so they could chat a bit, but she just needed to show her the photo. Okay, I'll send it to you tomorrow. I don't have it right now. Just call me and let me know what you think. All right? Carmelita nodded. The rest of the dinner was spent in a family atmosphere. Felisa ate in silence, listening to the conversation between father and daughter. She didn't understand much of their conversation, but she could see that they understood each other very well. It was only a matter of time before she would become the main person in their household, not Carmelita. In the morning, when Carmelita arrived at the institute, she immediately approached Amadia, who was already waiting for her by the office. "Hi, friend. Do you want to make some money?" "Of course. What do I need to do?" "My father gave me a job. We need to create advertising for his new factory. So after the institute, we'll work on that. I've already checked the emails, but some things are unclear to me, so we'll go to my place later, review everything again, and then come up with a plan for what we need to do next. Are you with me?" Amadia nodded, and they entered the office. After the wedding, Felisa had hoped that things would change significantly, that she would live in a luxurious apartment in the city center, and that her husband would give her money for everything she wanted. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. Orlando wasn't stingy, but he didn't give money for trivial things. He told Felisa that if she wanted to buy something necessary, he would always give her the money, but for unnecessary things, she should use her own money since she also worked. "But, dear, I have work expenses, so I can't use my own money right now." "Well, I have expenses too, and more than yours, so I can't give you money either." She was also greatly irritated that Carmelita drove to work in a fancy car while she was still using her old Jeep. She had long hinted to Orlando that she wanted a new car, but he laughed and said that her car was in excellent condition and that he saw no reason to replace it. Moreover, she still hadn't found common ground with Carmelita. Carmelita remained as cold toward her as before. Even the wedding hadn't changed that. She tried to get Carmelita to go shopping or have coffee, as they used to, but Carmelita always refused, saying she had too much work. When she complained to Orlando that his daughter was ignoring her, he replied that Carmelita had a lot of work and was perfectly fine toward her. Today, Felisa arrived feeling down again. Her husband came home very late, and she had wanted to go to a restaurant with him. As a result, she went to bed hungry. When she complained about being hungry, her husband told her to learn to cook at home because this would happen often, and he couldn't always go to restaurants with her. "Lorena, bring me coffee and a sandwich or something. I'm so hungry." She snapped at her secretary. "I'll get it for you right away, Felisa." After eating, Felisa's mood improved slightly. "I don't understand anything. I thought that by marrying a millionaire, I would be able to afford everything I want, but that's not the case. I don't even see my husband regularly. He's always busy with his daughter. They work together now, and he just can't stop praising her. All I hear is, Carmelita this, Carmelita that. It's so irritating. I need his attention. And his daughter, of course, too. But she doesn't even look at me. I'm a stranger to her. It seems like Carmelita should start thinking about herself. Do you know if she has a boyfriend? She's been engaged for a long time. It's about time she considered marriage." Felisa thought about it. Indeed, Carmelita didn't have a boyfriend. She was always with her father, always working, and as far as Felisa knew, she didn't go out much. It would be great if she had someone. Someone she could actually talk to. And then, Carmelita was working in her office when Felisa came in, overpowering the room with her intolerable perfume. It was obviously very expensive, but she seemed to have poured half the bottle at once. "What brings you here, Felisa?" Carmelita asked, surprised. "As far as I know, Father is in his office right now. I came to see you today. How about we go for a coffee? I have a lot of work, so I'm not going anywhere. We can have coffee here. I have a coffee machine." "Perfect. Then make me a cup, if you don't mind." Carmelita sighed. She didn't want to be distracted from her work, but she didn't want to upset Felisa either, as she understood how that would disappoint her father. She made the coffee and placed the cup in front of Felisa, still unsure about the purpose of the visit. "Listen, Carmelita, I was thinking, maybe we could go to a club together. You don't have a boyfriend, and you might meet someone there. I have an acquaintance who owns a club. They say it's really fancy. Shall we go?" "Sorry, Felisa, but I have a lot of work. You know, Dad just bought a new factory, it needs to be set up, and there's advertising and a lot of other things to do. I'm really not up for clubs right now. Besides, I don't think my father would like that. It's one thing for me, but you shouldn't be going to places like that without him. You probably misunderstood me. I actually want to do something nice for you. I would explain everything to your father. No, thank you. I appreciate the attention, but I can manage on my own. Now, if that's all, I need to get back to work. Felisa left the office fuming with anger. How dare this little creature talk to her like that? As if she were beneath her. She would never forgive her for this. She would do everything to make her father disappointed in her. Carmelita would dance to her tune yet, and then she'd be the one begging for forgiveness. By then, Felisa wouldn't care. When Orlando came home in the evening, he found his wife in tears. What's wrong with you, Felisa? Do you have a problem or something? Did something happen? My only problem is your daughter. I came over today to try to connect with her, invited her out for coffee, and she just kicked me out. Do you understand? She yelled at me and threw me out. That's strange. Carmelita told me that you came by and invited her to a club to unwind a bit. She turned you down because we really do have a lot of work. And you know what, Felisa? Don't make up stories about my daughter. I know her well. She would never be rude to you. Even if she didn't like someone, she would never raise her voice. She takes after her mother. She has iron patience. Sometimes I even envy her. I'd love to have that calm. Felisa realized the plan had failed and knew she needed to come up with something else. Carmelita was sitting in her room with her friend, talking. My stepmother came by today, invited me to a club, and said I need to meet a guy and start dating. What does she want from me now? I don't understand. Why are you being like that? She's trying to help you, she wants to please you, and you're reacting so negatively. No, Amadia. She's not the kind of woman who wants to help. She wants something from me, but I can't figure out what. And she doesn't like Carmen. Do you understand? I trust Carmen more on this matter than I do my father. All right. But think about it. What's so bad about what she suggested? Have you heard what goes on in those clubs? She said the owner is her acquaintance. She could set me up for anything there, and then I'd be embarrassed in front of my father. No, if I decide to go to a club, it will be without her. I don't need her tagging along. Did you tell your father about the visit? Of course, I did. As you know, we don't keep secrets from each other. Well, then don't worry. Besides, you didn't agree to go with her. So, what's the problem? It just annoys me that she's interfering in my life. Doesn't she understand that just because she married my father doesn't make her my mother or even my friend? I see right through her, she's a bad person. But your father doesn't think so. He just loves her. Men are different, but for us, things aren't the same. A year had passed since Felisa married Orlando. Recently, she had started to feel bored. Her husband had begun traveling frequently for work with his beloved daughter. Felisa tried several times to cause friction between them, but nothing worked. The last attempt ended in complete disaster. When she complained about Carmelita again, Carmelita came into their room and said that none of what Felisa was claiming had happened and that Felisa was making things up. Furthermore, it turned out that Carmelita had recorded their conversation, which was a knockout blow. Felisa didn't expect that. Orlando looked at his wife in confusion, and then, when Carmelita had left, he asked, puzzled, I don't understand. Why are you making things up about my daughter? I'm just tired of revolving around her like a lapdog, and she doesn't even pay me any attention. Why should she pay you attention? You didn't marry her, you married me. Besides, she's an adult now, she doesn't need a mother. Carmen played that role wonderfully for all those years, and Carmelita loves her dearly. So, don't interfere with Carmelita anymore, because if she gets upset with you, it will only make things worse for you. After that, Felisa stopped bothering Carmelita. Now, once again, they had left, and she had been alone at home for 2 evenings, drinking wine. Glancing at the clock, she got ready and went to a restaurant for dinner. The place was nearly empty, so she sat at the table she and Orlando used to favor and ordered dinner. "Felisa, hi, is that you?" She looked up and saw Raphael, her classmate, standing in front of her. All the girls had had a crush on him back then, including her. Even now, seeing him, she felt breathless and butterflies fluttered in her stomach. "Raphael? Have I changed that much?" "No, it's just a surprise to see you here. Sit with me, tell me how you've been." "Not great. I came to the city, enrolled in university. After that, I got into business but failed. Now I'm without an apartment and job. I'm just wandering around looking for work. I have a meeting here today, but no one has shown up yet. When I saw you, I couldn't believe it. What a beauty you've become. Are you married?" "Yes, for a year now." "Really? Well, good for you. If I go back to our village, I'll definitely tell them about you. I don't think anyone will believe it." "Let them not believe it. Since you're not in a hurry, maybe you'd like to have a drink with me? Or maybe have dinner. You know, I wouldn't mind. I haven't eaten all day. I've been running around the city looking for work." They spent a long time talking in the restaurant. Afterwards, they went back to Felisa's place. The next morning, Felisa looked at Raphael, who was still asleep. She remembered their passionate night and felt good. She wasn't going to let him go. She'd find him an apartment so he could live there and would visit him, and she'd help him with work. The only question was where to place him. "Raphael, do you have a higher education?" "Yes, I do." "Why?" "I'll talk to my husband. I'll say I met a classmate who needs a job. He'll hire you because he needs specialists right now. I think you'll manage everything there. Is that okay?" "Well, you're a godsend. The truth is, I have nowhere to stay. I was hoping to talk to the employer and persuade him to give me some sort of advance to rent an apartment. But he apparently didn't show up yesterday. Or maybe we were so absorbed in each other that I didn't notice him. Don't worry about housing. I'll help you rent an apartment and give you money. We'll meet there. If you want, of course." "Are you still asking?" "Of course, I want to, my queen. Will your husband mind?" "He's always busy with work. He doesn't pay any attention to me. He's off on business trips with his daughter, who he dotes on. I thought things would be different." "So, your husband has an adult daughter, as I understand? Is she married?" "No, she's not married. But you should know, Raphael, I won't tolerate infidelity. If you're with me, then be with me. If not, you'll be without a place to stay and without a job again. Do you understand?" "Of course I understand. Why are you getting so angry?" "I just asked. Maybe I can help." "No, I had a plan, but I'm not going to share it with you. Is Carmelita a beautiful girl?" "Raphael, I told you not to push me, or things will end badly. Now get up, I need to go to work, and you need to find an apartment. We'll find you a place close to my salon so it will be easier for us to meet. And when will you talk to your husband about work?" "My husband is coming back tomorrow, and I'll talk to him in the evening. Now get up, come on. I'm already running late." Felisa quickly found an apartment for Raphael. It turned out to be very cute, and she was satisfied that it was so close to her work. "This is where you'll live. Just don't even think about coming to my work because if my husband finds out, our fairy tale will end." "I understand, Felisa. You don't need to repeat everything 100 times. Besides, if you help me with work, there's no reason for us to get ourselves into trouble." "Perfect. Then make yourself comfortable, and in the evening after work, I'll come over and we'll go somewhere. Later, we'll come to your place and celebrate your new home." Orlando arrived a bit earlier than he and Carmelita had planned. Things were moving much faster with his daughter than before. His wife was at work, so Orlando didn't call her but went directly to her salon to see her personally. But she wasn't there, and the secretary said she had gone somewhere, though she didn't specify where. So he called her. "Hello, darling. Where are you?" "Orlando, did you already arrive?" "Yes, and what's surprising you? You don't seem pleased." "Oh, darling, don't be silly. Of course, I'm happy. I just didn't expect you to come back so early. Sorry, I'm busy right now talking to a supplier. Let's have lunch together today if you don't have any plans." "No plans, I'm free today. By the way, I'm at your salon. If you want, I can wait for you here." "Great idea. I'll be there soon." Orlando asked for a coffee and approached the window. He was surprised to see that his wife's car was parked outside the salon. It genuinely puzzled him, but then he thought there might be a reason why his wife hadn't driven herself. Felisa was dressing while glancing at Raphael, who was lounging comfortably in bed and watching her. "Why are you staring like that?" "I need to leave. I didn't expect my husband to come back so early. I was only expecting him in the evening or at night. Now I need to go to avoid any suspicions. Don't forget to talk to him about me. I urgently need a job. I'm completely out of money." "Do you want me to give you money? Am I a gigolo?" "No, dear. Thanks for helping me, but I'll manage on my own from here. Just do me one more small favor, help me with the job." "Fine, I'll talk to him today. I'll say I ran into an old classmate, and so on. Don't worry, I know how to handle negotiations." "I'm sure you do. I hope you're not planning to walk to the salon?" "Why? It's just across the street." "Exactly. And what if your husband is at the window? What will you tell him? That your supplier lives in the building next door?" "You're right. What should I do then?" "Call a taxi. Think of something. Make a circle and then show up at the salon as if nothing happened." "You're right. I hadn't thought of that. Be careful, Felisa, because if you keep thinking like this, your husband will figure everything out immediately." Felisa was having dinner with her husband and told him about her evening. "So, I was sitting with a friend when suddenly I saw a familiar face. Can you believe it? It was Raphael Tabares. He was my classmate. He had a meeting and then he joined us. He talked about how things are back in our town, remembered old classmates, and told us who's living how. Half of our girls are married with kids, some of the guys started drinking heavily, and some, like him, moved to the city. But he's having trouble finding a job. His business partner let him down. He's in a tough spot now and looking for work. I was thinking, could you help him? You need smart guys, after all." "Well, all right. Tell him to come by my office tomorrow morning. I'll talk to him, and if the guy is really worth it, he can have the job." "Thank you, darling. After all, he's a fellow countryman, and I didn't want to deny him help." Early the next morning, Raphael walked into the office and looked around with excitement. Everything was top-notch. It was clear that money was not a problem here. When he was invited into the office, he saw a rather handsome man, though already older. Next to him stood a beautiful young woman showing him some papers. At first, he thought she was the secretary, but then he noticed their resemblance and realized that she was probably his daughter. "Hello, I'm Raphael Tabares. Felisa called me and told me to come in." "Yes, of course, I remember. Please, have a seat and wait for a moment, we're almost done. Carmelita, everything is great, but there are a few corrections needed here, which you remember. When everything is ready, please bring me the final documents." Raphael looked at the young woman again. She was indeed beautiful, and her name, Carmelita, suited her perfectly. He repeated her name to himself as if tasting it and smiled. He was determined to do everything to get the job. It was now clear why Felisa was so upset when he asked about her daughter. There was reason to be jealous because, compared to Carmelita, Felisa seemed dull and unattractive. Carmelita paid no attention to the people who came to see her father. She was used to it. Her work was elsewhere, and she wasn't concerned with the rest. Did you see the new guy we have? Oh my God, he's a real heartthrob. And he's not married. And his name is so beautiful, Raphael. Amadea, you need to think about work, not about handsome men. Stop it, Carmelita. You're already getting on my nerves with your work obsession. You'll never get married like this. Don't you want to meet a guy who will walk you home in the evenings or kiss you tenderly? I, for one, would love to start dating. But you only just broke up with your latest suitor. Give yourself a break. What are you talking about? The moment I saw Raphael, I fell in love. All the girls are going crazy over him. Let's go to lunch together today. You'll see for yourself how handsome he is. Fine, all right. You convinced me. I'll go and check him out. Raphael joined everyone for lunch. He was brought up to speed and quickly realized he could handle the job, as he had a good head on his shoulders. Moreover, he was pleased with the salary. The pay was excellent. He had already met everyone, especially Amadea, who buzzed around him like a bee around a flower. From her, he learned that she was a close friend of Carmelita, and he thought Amadea might be useful to him. The only dark spot was the constant calls and texts from Felisa. She seemed to check in every 5 minutes, asking how he was doing and how work was going. Although he understood what she wanted to ask but was too hesitant to do so, he found her persistence bothersome. He decided that, as soon as he had the chance, he would have a serious talk with her about it. Carmelita watched Raphael, who was sitting at a table with some other people, cheerfully telling them stories. Yes, he was indeed very handsome, but that was all. She had learned not to judge a person by their appearance and knew that guys with looks like his often lacked intelligence because they were used to having girls throw themselves at them. So, what do you think? How do you find him? Well, he's a nice-looking guy. That's all you have to say about him? Oh, Carmelita, you're so boring. You're really starting to scare me. Maybe we should go out somewhere? Besides, Raphael invited us all to the club. He said he wanted to celebrate his first day at work. Are you coming? No, I don't think it's my scene. Besides, you know I don't like all these parties. I need to get some rest. Tomorrow is a work day, if you haven't forgotten. Don't be such a bore, Carmelita. What's wrong with you? We're young, we need to have fun. And you're acting like an old woman. That's not right. Besides, we've done all the work. Tomorrow we just need to check everything, so relax a little. We've done an amazing job on the advertising, and we deserve a break. Also, I don't think your father will mind us going to the club, so just agree. Fine, all right, you convinced me. It's true, I haven't been out anywhere for ages. Exactly, and youth is slipping away. And you and I are always alone with this work. We don't even have boyfriends. Don't speak for me. You're the one who gets a new boyfriend every week, loves him madly, and thinks he's the one. I can't help it if I always feel that way at first, then get to know them better and realize they're not right for me. Besides, I still have time to choose. Got it? More than enough. I just need to finish up a few things so I don't have to worry about them tomorrow. When you all head out, come pick me up. Of course. Hooray. I'll tell the guys that you're joining us. Raphael was very pleased with this news. He had been disappointed when he heard from the others that Carmelita wouldn't be joining them and thought he'd wasted the whole party idea for his first day of work. But it turned out not to be so bad. Amadea had managed to convince her friend. Although Amadea herself was becoming a problem, as she was constantly fluttering around Raphael. Before heading to the club, Raphael called Felisa. Where are you? Still at work? No, I'm heading to the club with the guys. I need to celebrate my first day at work. That's how it's done here, as you can imagine. Just calling to give you a heads up. Oh, well, that's fine then. I'm letting you go without any worries because I know who's going. For instance, my husband's daughter won't be there because I know her well. She prefers not to attend such events. She's quite the high flyer. Raphael smiled but didn't say anything more, realizing that if he let slip that Carmelita was also going with them, Felisa might rush to the club and ruin everything, which was not part of his plan. Initially, when he met Felisa, he thought he wasn't losing anything, and she was likable enough. But when he saw Carmelita, he realized this was his chance to achieve what he had always dreamed of. Besides, the girl was quite beautiful and unmarried. Therefore, marrying her opened up completely new prospects. The club was loud and lively. Carmelita was a bit flustered, but Amadea quickly spotted the group led by Raphael. It was hard to miss him. Sorry we're a bit late. We had to finish up some work, Amadea said cheerfully, winking at Raphael. The group quieted down slightly when they saw Carmelita. They were unsure how to act, especially since management was partying with them for the first time. Come on, relax, everyone. Why so quiet? It's not the boss here, just a girl who decided to unwind after a workday. Right, Carmelita? Carmelita nodded, not really sure how to behave among the group. Raphael decided to take charge. He introduced himself, then brought cocktails for Amadea and Carmelita. As they settled at the table, he told a couple of funny anecdotes, and finally, everyone started to relax. Carmelita turned out to be a very cheerful girl, sharing a few amusing stories from their school days. The conversation naturally shifted to their university years. Overall, everyone was having a great time. Later, Raphael asked Carmelita to dance, and she agreed. After the party, he walked her home. He enjoyed how she interacted with him, unlike the other girls he had dated who were always trying to please him and practically hanging on his every word. Carmelita treated him like a friend and nothing more. This wasn't what he wanted, he had different plans. But he realized he needed to make an effort to win her over. Additionally, he needed to impress her father, who was a very serious man. It was going to be a tough challenge, but if he succeeded, the reward would be worth $1 million. He tried to act slowly and unobtrusively, and he could see that Carmelita appreciated his calm and friendly demeanor. It seemed he was on the right track. However, he had another problem, Felisa, who noticed something was off but couldn't figure out what it was. You still don't want to meet with me today? No, Felisa, I've told you already, I have a lot of work. You know how it is, the boss is demanding. I come home late and go straight to bed. But don't worry, it will all end soon, and I'll be coming home earlier. Just don't lie to me, Raphael. If I find out you have another woman, don't blame me, you'll be out of a job immediately. And what will you tell your husband? That you've been making advances towards me. Then we'll see who he believes, you or me. Raphael was definitely not expecting that turn of events. The situation was getting more complicated. Felisa couldn't be let go too easily to prevent her from doing something foolish. Everything had been going so well. He and Carmelita had already gone to the movies a couple of times, and then to a restaurant, and he could see she was starting to like him. He himself was quite taken with her. He had never met a girl like her before. Although he understood that he wasn't truly in love yet, as he preferred women who were more passionate, like Felisa. Carmelita, we won't be able to meet today because my relatives from my hometown have arrived, and I promised to take them out for dinner. Will you be upset? No, Raphael, it's fine. Besides, to be honest, my friend has been asking me to go to the movies with her for a while now, and she's upset that I've completely forgotten about her. Raphael knew exactly which friend she was talking about. He also knew Carmelita wasn't lying, as Amadea had indeed been whining all week about wanting to see that particular movie. Will you have time tonight? I've asked a colleague to cover for me today. I'm already missing you, so I'll be waiting for you at my place this evening. Felisa was glowing with happiness. Finally! She had been plagued by various thoughts lately. She had even asked Orlando if Carmelita was seeing someone, but the reassuring answer was that Carmelita wasn't seeing anyone at the moment. Felisa understood that Raphael might only be interested in the boss's daughter and no one else. She saw through him because they were very much alike. They loved money and were willing to do anything for it. After telling her husband she had a business meeting, Felisa went to meet her lover. "Why have you taken so long to invite me over? I was beginning to think you had found someone else." "Oh, stop it. Who would I find there? Of course, Carmelita is a beautiful girl, but she's like a jellyfish. I don't like girls like her." "That's great." Already lying in bed, they resumed their conversation. "Raphael, be honest, would you marry someone like Carmelita?" "No, I don't need a wife like that. She might try, but she's nowhere near you. I like women like you. You don't understand. Carmelita has never been in a relationship before. I'm surprised myself, but she's obsessed with work. She takes after her father in that respect, and she got her beauty from her mother. I heard her mother passed away when Carmelita was very young." "Yes." "How did you know that? Did you dig up some information on her?" "No, it's just that her red-haired friend, Amadia, is quite the gossip, so she told me all about it. I can't stand her either. She always sticks her nose where it doesn't belong. Anyway, let's not dwell on that. I have some good news. My husband is going on a business trip again, this time abroad. I won't hide it from you. I wanted him to take me with him, but he said it wouldn't work out and that Carmelita would go instead. So we'll have time to enjoy each other's company." Raphael was not pleased by this news at all. Carmelita's departure meant all his efforts might be in vain. Maybe he should try to talk her out of the trip? No, it probably wouldn't work. He had to brace himself, wait, and then start all over again. Carmelita didn't expect to miss Raphael so much, but the business trip was harder on her than she anticipated. She found herself constantly thinking about him, and it was surprising to her how much he occupied her mind. "Sweetie, I've noticed you've been very thoughtful lately. Is something wrong?" "No, everything's fine, Dad. I just want to confess something to you. But please, don't mention it to Felisa yet, because it might be nothing serious." "Daughter, stop dragging it out. What's going on?" "There's a guy I like. He works with us, and I didn't think it was serious, but this trip made everything clear." "So, you're saying you're in love?" "Yes, Dad. It seems that way to me, and I didn't expect it myself." "That's wonderful. Love can come suddenly like that. Your mother didn't like me at first, but later she realized she loved me just as much as I loved her. It's the same for you. Will you introduce me to your guy?" "Let's not jump ahead, Dad. I'm not sure how he feels about me yet. Maybe I'm the one who's in love, and he just sees me as another girl." Raphael counted the days. He both anticipated and dreaded seeing Carmelita again. He feared that she would once again show him coldness and detachment, meaning he would have to start over. And what if she met someone else while she was away? Then everything would be lost. But when they met and he looked into her shining eyes, he sighed with relief. He didn't expect such an effect from their separation, and he could see that her heart had softened. It was time to move to a more serious step, officially asking her to be his girlfriend and meeting her father in a more informal setting. "Raphael, aren't you rushing things? I think it's a bit early for you to meet my father." "Carmelita, you're wrong. I want to be with you all the time, day and night. I want to ask for your father's blessing." "What? Are you proposing to me?" "Yes, because I can't live without you. Will you marry me?" Raphael himself didn't expect to say this, but he couldn't wait any longer. Something had to be done urgently. Besides, Felisa had been getting on his nerves for a while. She wasn't just controlling him, she was like a bird that kept sticking. "This is very unexpected, Raphael. I'm a bit flustered. It's just that while you were away, I realized and thought everything through carefully. Are you agreeing?" Carmelita blushed and nodded. "Then I'll tell my father not to make any plans for the weekend. We'll share the news with him then." "That's wonderful, my love. Now I have to go, I have work to do. You see, I couldn't wait until evening. As soon as I saw you, I couldn't hold back and had to say everything. Carmelita entered her father's office, unsure of how to start the conversation. Daughter, something seems to be up? You seem a bit excited. Dad, are you free on Saturday? Of course. Do you want to go somewhere? Yes, we're inviting you to a restaurant. My boyfriend wants to get to know you better and share some news. Really? Is it what I think it is? Carmelita nodded. So, you're saying you're getting married soon? Carmelita blushed again and nodded. Sweetheart, do you really love him that much? I'm very happy for you, and I have an idea of which guy you're talking about. Is it Raphael? Am I right? How do you know? Well, I've heard rumors that he's been courting you for a while. I was just waiting for you to tell me yourself. You stayed silent, so I thought nothing serious was happening. Yes, I thought so too, until I went on the business trip. That's when I realized I love him. Well, I'm very happy for you, daughter. Let's meet on Saturday and talk to your fiancé. Felisa was beside herself. For almost a week, Raphael hadn't answered her calls, saying he was too busy and generally ignoring her as best he could. She decided to give up on everything and show up at his place on Saturday, but her husband stopped her, saying they were going out to a restaurant in the evening where Carmelita and her boyfriend would be. Which boyfriend? And how long has he been around? For quite a while, but they've only decided to take a serious step now. So, I'm asking you to behave modestly tonight. And most importantly, support Carmelita in everything. Do you understand? When have I not supported her? Felisa, you know exactly what I'm talking about. For a while, you did everything to drive a wedge between me and our daughter. Do you think I've forgotten? And lately, I don't like how you've been acting towards me, constantly irritable, making calls. Do you think I don't see? If you have work problems, tell me, and I'll help solve them. Or do you have a lover? What? How could you even think that? I don't have anyone but you. It's just a conflict with a client. She turned out to be a powerful figure, so I'm dealing with it. But it's all in the past now, so don't be mad at me. Fine. Then you understand what I'm saying. Be more courteous to Carmelita. She has never said anything bad about you, even after everything you did. Felisa was angry but couldn't say anything. Her heart sank when her husband hinted at a lover. Her behavior had almost ruined everything. If he wanted her to be nice to his daughter, she would be. The main thing was to keep Orlando calm, or she'd lose everything. Carmelita and Raphael arrived at the restaurant first. He was tense because he knew exactly who he was about to meet. It was uncomfortable, as everything was at stake, and Felisa could ruin it all. Though he knew that if she said something negative, she'd be hurting herself first and hoped she understood that perfectly well. Felisa spotted Raphael first. She flinched, not understanding what he was doing there, then saw Carmelita. So, they were together after all. Jealousy overwhelmed her, and she wanted to scream to everyone that he was only hers, but she caught herself in time, took her husband's arm, put on a smile, and they walked to the table together. At that moment, Raphael also tensed up when he saw Felisa with Orlando. Carmelita, bringing her father, smiled and gave him a kiss on the cheek. She just greeted Felisa. Raphael, meet my wife, Felisa. Although, what am I saying? You already know each other. Now, tell us what we're having for dinner tonight. Carmelita frowned. She hadn't expected that Raphael and Felisa knew each other, and it made her a bit uncomfortable. Sorry, darling, I forgot about this. Felisa asked about Raphael, and not only are they from the same town, but they were also classmates. Yes, darling, I'm sorry. I just completely forgot that Felisa is your father's wife. Besides, we never talked about school. If we remembered anything, it was only about our college years. Carmelita relaxed again, as it was true that they had never discussed school. She watched Felisa, who had lowered her eyes to the menu, apparently choosing what to have for dinner. Everything seemed fine so far, but Carmelita couldn't shake the feeling that something was bothering her. Was it jealousy? The evening went as well as it could. Carmelita saw that Raphael had impressed her father because they spent most of the time talking at the table. When Raphael and Felisa went to the restroom, she asked her father what he thought of Raphael. "You know, darling, he's a decent guy. And he loves you, which is the most important thing. For me, the first priority is that you are happy." Meanwhile, after Raphael had left, Felisa excused herself and also went to the restroom. "So, this is what you're doing behind my back? Is this your way of showing gratitude? Fine. I'm going to go tell your fiancée the whole truth. Let's see how she feels about marrying you after that." If you haven't noticed, Carmelita can't stand being deceived. All this news will hit her hard. She'll realize that you're doing all this only for your own benefit. You wouldn't dare. Because if you open your mouth, I won't stay silent either. I'll tell your husband how you've been unfaithful to him with me. And then we'll see what awaits you. What are you waiting for? Go ahead and spill the beans. I'll just make my exit, so to speak, as a dessert, to shock not just your daughter but also her father. Felisa realized she had lost. If she said anything, it would be the end of her. How can you not understand? I really love you, Raphael. Don't you see that? I'm with him only for the money. If I leave him, I'll have nothing. Do you understand? Of course I do. But, Felisa, be patient. I'm sure we'll figure out a way to get rid of the Serrato clan and then live our lives as we please. Felisa looked at Raphael in surprise, then nodded and left. He followed her a little later. They decided to hold the wedding at a restaurant. Despite Carmelita's objections, her father insisted. What are you talking about? My partners wouldn't understand. How could Orlando Serrato not throw a wedding for his only daughter? I'm sorry, darling, but it has to be done this way, so bear with it. Really, Carmelita, just bear with it a bit. Don't you want to wear a wedding dress? I don't know. I've never liked weddings. I always wanted to celebrate the day with family, not among a crowd of guests, half of whom I don't even know. Darling, you have to understand, this is very important to me. And for you, of course, because sooner or later, everything I have will be passed on to you. Carmelita nodded and went to the kitchen to get something to drink. She realized that decisions had been made for her and that no one was going to listen to her. So, what's got my girl looking so glum? Asked Carmen, pouring juice into a glass for Carmelita. Here, drink this, and you'll feel better right away. Carmelita complained that no one wanted to listen to her and that they were planning a lavish wedding that she didn't want. I understand, my dear. Your mother told me the same thing. She couldn't stand all the showiness. Of course, back then your father wasn't as wealthy, so the celebration was modest. But now, your father can't do otherwise. Carmelita, honey, are you sure that Raphael is the man you really want to marry? Maybe your doubts are because of him? I love him and don't regret accepting his proposal. I really like him. And I think I'll be happy with him. But Carmen, do you have any doubts? I don't like him. I can't quite say why, but you know me, I don't speak ill of people without reason. Carmelita pondered. She was used to heeding her aunt's opinions, but now she felt uneasy. Raphael had never wronged her, and she couldn't doubt him. He was always very tender with her, practically brushing off every speck of dust, and she felt that his feelings for her were sincere. Maybe it will pass over time. Carmen will get used to Raphael and stop suspecting him of anything. After the wedding, they would live in the apartment together, and she would see how good he is, and then she would be reassured. Lately, Felisa had been walking around in a daze. She couldn't even understand how it happened that she fell so deeply in love with Raphael. The wedding preparations were driving her crazy. She was relieved that Carmelita wasn't asking for her help. She wouldn't have been able to manage and would likely have given herself away. Oh God. And then they'd go on their honeymoon, even if only for a week, but that was already too much for her. They met every day, and he told her that he wouldn't be able to live with Carmelita for long because she was too calm and composed, which irritated him greatly. A woman should be lively, even wild, not a quiet person like Carmelita. It just drives me crazy. She never raises her voice, always speaks in an even tone. You're different, like a tigress, always ready to pounce and tear me apart. I'm glad we met. We're made for each other. Hang in there a bit longer, and we'll start taking action. First, we'll get rid of your husband, and then my wife will be next. Finally. He's become so tiresome to me, especially at night. I can't even share a bed with him anymore. I only think about you all the time. Felisa, please, don't mess things up prematurely. Do you understand? Otherwise, we'll end up with nothing. Your husband will destroy us. No, darling, I would never say anything. I understand that our lives and our happiness are at stake right now. After the wedding and honeymoon, Carmelita took over the work, sending her father on vacation. However, it turned out that this was not as easy as she had hoped. Dad, I'm not asking you to take a month off, just a few days. I can manage on my own here. Besides, you haven't been resting at all lately, and you look a bit unwell. I'm worried. Yes, things haven't been going well with Felisa lately. She's like a wild beast. Sometimes she won't talk to me all day, and other times she yells at me for no reason. I'm exhausted. It's all getting on my nerves. So, for me, work is the best remedy. No, Dad, the best remedy is to go fishing with Carmen's brother and get some good rest. I think it'll do you good. You're right, dear. Pacho has been inviting me for a long time, always through Carmen, saying he's waiting for me to visit. That's great. So, go tomorrow. Felisa was pleased that her husband was finally leaving the house, even if only for a couple of days. She could no longer tolerate him. She immediately informed Rafael. My husband is leaving tomorrow, so I'll be without him for a few days. Think of something for your wife, and let's spend time together. Felisa, stop thinking only about yourself. We have a perfect opportunity to get rid of your husband. Just tell me one thing, will he be driving himself or will he have a driver? He'll be driving himself. I heard him mention it to Rogelio. Why do you ask? Because tomorrow your husband will lose control of the car and have an accident. I don't think he'll be saved. Think about it, your daughter saw that her father was tired, so she sent him on vacation. He drives himself, feels unwell, and loses control of the vehicle. Do you understand? You're a genius. You've thought of everything. All right, you're right. For now, we should put our feelings on hold. Later, when everything works out, we'll never be apart. Orlando woke up early in the morning and started getting ready. He didn't wake his wife and quietly left the house on his own. However, he was worried because he had a headache and realized that he didn't want to drive in that condition. He called his driver. Rogelio, sorry for waking you up so early, but I need you. I hope you didn't have any plans? What happened, Orlando? I'm just going fishing, but I can't drive myself because I'm not feeling well. Would you like to spend the vacation with me? I promise you won't regret it. No problem, I'll be there soon. Rafael put on a mask and kept an eye on the road. During the night, he had stolen an old car and was now waiting for his father-in-law on the road. His plan was to drive into the oncoming lane, causing the father-in-law's car to swerve and plummet into a deep ravine. There was no chance of survival, he was certain of that. Everything went as he had expected. The car fell into the ravine and caught fire. That meant it was over for his father-in-law. Carmelita only received the news at noon. She was called and told that her father had died in a car accident. She went to the police station, where she was asked why her father was so far from the city, especially alone. He was just going fishing. He hadn't had a vacation in a long time. Plus, he was feeling very unwell, so I suggested he take some time off. And he went without a driver, is that right? I don't know. He said he'd call me when he arrived. How do you know he went without a driver? We've already questioned his wife. She confirmed that he was going fishing but went alone, without a driver. Can I see my father? Carmelita asked, sobbing. No, Carmelita, to be honest, the scene is unpleasant because your father was badly injured in the fire. Rafael picked Carmelita up from the station and tried to comfort her as best as he could while driving her home. Don't worry, I'll go to the factory and take care of everything. You need to stay home for a bit, Carmen is already waiting for you. She specifically asked me to bring you straight to her. Carmelita was quite surprised, but didn't say anything about it. Most likely, her aunt was just worried about her and thought she was feeling very bad. And she did feel bad, but Carmelita couldn't believe that her father was dead because her heart felt numb. Rafael drove carefully and kept glancing at his wife. She wasn't crying, she sat calmly, which was even unnerving. He had expected Carmelita to scream, cry, and be hysterical, but she seemed almost to have fallen asleep with her eyes open. Are you okay, dear? Yes, I'm fine. Don't worry about me. Once we get home, I'll feel better. Rafael couldn't believe his ears. His wife was calmly saying that she was okay. But he had seen how much she adored her father. Not just seen, he had heard it from her. Could it be that all this was not true? Was she really waiting for her father's death so she could have all his wealth for herself? What composure! He would never have thought that a quiet person could be capable of such things. They say it's true, still waters run deep. Upon entering the apartment, Carmelita went straight to the kitchen. There, Carmen was waiting for her, and her face showed no signs of tears. My dear, sit down, I need to talk to you. Well, I'm off to work, and if you need anything, just call. All right? Carmelita nodded but didn't say a word. As soon as Rafael left, Carmen immediately approached Carmelita and whispered, Your father is alive, dear. Everything is fine. He went with the driver. A car came at them from the opposite direction, and they went off into a ravine. Your father managed to get out, but Rogelio didn't, he died. Your father told me that no one should know yet because it was an assassination attempt. Nobody knew he was traveling with his driver. He decided that in the morning because he wasn't feeling well. He suspects his wife Felisa and thinks she has an accomplice. Right now, Orlando is safe. He's staying with my brother until things settle down. Trusted people from the police are already handling it, and they know your father is alive. At that moment, it was as if a dam had broken within Carmelita. She burst into tears from both relief and the realization that her heart hadn't let her down, even though her mind had been saying otherwise. Carmen looked at her in shock, not understanding what was happening. I just couldn't believe he was dead. My heart told me he was alive. It said I would have felt it if something happened to him. And in my head, there was only the thought that he was gone. I was so scared. And now, when you told me this, I just couldn't help but cry, this time out of joy. Thank God, dear. You scared me. By the way, your father said it's better for you to stay home for now. It wouldn't be right to go back to work immediately. I'll do as he said. The main thing is that he's okay. They'll figure out who did this. Rafael arrived home and went straight to the bedroom to see Carmelita. She was lying on the bed, reading a book. When she saw Rafael, she jumped up joyfully and ran to him. He was taken aback. Carmelita, you're scaring me. Are you all right? Everything is just perfect. Sit down, I'll tell you everything. Dad is alive. Just don't tell anyone yet. The police are aware and suspect Felisa and someone else helping her. Dad explained how it all went down. He saw it was all staged. Carmelita, please calm down. I understand you want to believe the best. But he was alone in the car, so... No, he wasn't alone. In the morning, he felt unwell and called his driver, Rogelio. If it hadn't been for him, my father would definitely have died. Once the case is closed, we'll immediately contact his family to help with the funeral and finances. He was a great guy. Dad is very upset about how everything turned out. Raphael turned pale. That meant the plan had failed, and he needed to think of something urgently. Carmelita couldn't be touched right now, otherwise everyone would figure out that he and Felisa were involved. What to do? He needed to come up with another plan. I'm really glad everything is okay. Just please, don't tell anyone, especially Felisa. She's coming here tomorrow, saying she wants to be with me because she's feeling very bad on her own. Will you be home tomorrow? Yes, Dad said I need to stay here for now. Raphael didn't sleep all night. He was thinking about how to divert suspicion away from Felisa. He thought that if the police started digging deeper, their affair would come to light, and that would be the end of them. By morning, the plan was ready. He just needed to wait for Felisa and talk to her. But how to do it? Felisa arrived early in the morning. Carmen was in the garden, and Carmelita was taking a shower. Raphael approached her and whispered, "Listen carefully, your husband is alive, and they suspect you. Stay silent and listen carefully. To divert suspicion from you, I plan to stage an accident. Make it look like an attempt on my life. Do you have any doctor friends at the hospital?" Felisa nodded, frightened. "Good. You need to arrange for them to put me in intensive care. Understand? Make it look like I'm dying. I know it will be very expensive, but it will take suspicion off you, and you'll get all of your husband's and daughter's assets. I'm not entirely sure how it will work out yet, but that's the plan for now, and this is the first stage. Got it?" Felisa nodded again. Raphael stepped away and poured himself some coffee. At that moment, Carmelita walked in and looked at Felisa. She was standing by the window, looking out nervously. "Hi, Felisa, sit down. I'll get you some coffee. It turns out my husband is not very gallant. He drinks coffee himself and doesn't offer any to his guest. Ladies, forgive me, but I'm in a hurry to get to work. Felisa just arrived, so I didn't have time to do much. But as the hostess, I'm sure you'll manage better than I would." Carmelita poured coffee for herself and Felisa and placed the cups on the table. "Drink up, I think it will make you feel better." "I won't feel better because my husband is dead," Felisa whispered and began to cry. Carmelita felt sorry for her, but remembering her father's instructions, she didn't say anything. Raphael reviewed the plan again. Everything seemed to be in order. In a week, he would also stage an accident to cover the tracks completely. Everyone would think it was the competitors trying to get rid of the Serrato family. First, they decided to remove the men because it's easier to deal with women. Everything seemed to fit. Then Dad would understand that Felisa was not involved, which was the most important thing. Besides, if Raphael dies now, it will free his hands, and he could then eliminate both his father-in-law and his wife without issue. Felisa stayed home and didn't go to work, saying she was very ill. Because of this, she went to the clinic to make arrangements for Raphael. She had to pay a lot of money, but Eva Larez, the head of the hospital and a longtime client of Felisa's, agreed to help her. The most important thing is to keep it clean. I'm telling you, this is just to help a very good acquaintance of mine. He's being pursued by thugs and needs to hide. Whoever asks, tell them he's in serious condition, and even better, that he's in a coma. Understand? And make sure no one else is allowed to see him, except for his wife. She'll probably come often at first." Carmelita was horrified when she received the call from the hospital informing her that her husband had been in a terrible accident and was now in a coma. The police also mentioned it was likely an attempted murder. She called her father and told him everything, then went to see Raphael. Raphael lay there, completely bandaged, with wires attached to him and an oxygen mask on his face. The doctor, who was already expecting Carmelita, informed her that her husband was in a coma and there were no guarantees. She wanted to stay with her husband, but was forbidden. Visitors were not allowed in the ICU, so she was only permitted to visit Raphael once a day, and briefly. In the evening, her father called and advised her to stay strong. You see, my dear, they told me not to come home for now. You see what's happening. If it were Felisa, they wouldn't have touched Raphael. It seems like it's someone serious, though it's strange, as I didn't have any enemies. I understand, Dad. I don't know what to think. Maybe it's just a coincidence. The police were at the accident scene and said it was something terrible and seemed to be deliberately staged, so it couldn't have been a mistake. Besides, he was driving himself, and he was less fortunate than I was. It'll be okay, soon we'll send him to Germany. I've already called some contacts. They'll admit him to a top-notch clinic and help him. Find out how he's doing, what the doctors are saying, and if he can be transferred. 2 weeks passed, and the prognosis was not good. Carmelita didn't know what to think. She called her father with the latest news, saying that Raphael was still in a coma with no changes. Don't worry, we'll send him on a specially equipped plane. So go to the hospital tomorrow and take care of the paperwork under your own responsibility. Do you understand? Yes, Dad, I'll do it. The next day, when Carmelita arrived at the hospital, her first stop was the head of the department. When she explained the situation, she was refused because Raphael was dying. His condition worsened last night. Go in and say your goodbyes, he likely won't make it through the night. Leaving the ICU, Carmelita was heading toward the exit when a nurse caught up with her. Excuse me, are you Carmelita? Yes. What do you need? I just can't stand seeing you being deceived. But I can't tell you directly, you wouldn't believe me anyway. I know you have money, and I think it would be easy for you to set up a hidden camera in the room. Can you do that? Yes, that's not a problem. Do that, and you'll see everything for yourself and understand. Carmelita arranged with the security team that had worked for her father for many years. She explained the situation, and they provided her with a camera and instructions on how to set it up. In the evening, Carmelita went back to Raphael's room, stayed briefly, and set up the camera as instructed. The next day, she returned to the hospital, retrieved the camera, and went to the office. After reviewing the footage, she was horrified. The video contained everything, including the plan for her and her father's deaths. She never expected this from her husband and Felisa. But the most shocking revelation for Carmelita was that Raphael and Felisa were lovers. Without hesitation, she called her father. Dad, you can come back. I've found the culprits. You were right, it's your wife and her accomplice. And who's the accomplice? My husband. She heard her father curse and hang up. He would arrive soon and sort everything out, while she decided to head home because she was